that, for the meantime, do something new as it should be. Zabo, my money, my future. All takes East Africa, do something new. And obviously now we're getting into our SMB Insight this morning, and the insight is going to rotate around the Nssf report, where there are recommendations now from the committee. The committee brought on board the report for the parliamentary sitting or the plenary sitting in Parliament yesterday. And of course, one of the key recommendations was, one, the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development should resign, that is Betty Amongi. Then the other one is that the Nssf former director, that is Richard Biarugaba, and the current acting director, Mr. Patrick Ayota, should as well step down of their duties. That is according to the latest recommendations from the same select committee, which is led by the chairperson, Honorable Mpaka Mwine. So Andrew, by the look of things here, we are getting back into the Nssf saga.
Yeah.
And now apparently we are looking at the recommendations, and the recommendation on the top was let the minister resign for matters to do with the 6 billion which was in there during the time. And then also because of the saga, like we did mention back in the time, that a CEO of a company is always the person they look at, regardless of whether you are appointed or you are the owner.
Yeah.
So now the managing director of Nssf, Richard Biarugaba, who is no longer the managing director, he is the former. Now the committee recommends that even the current or the acting should as well step down, so that we have new faces at the fund.
Well, regarding Biarugaba's case, maybe that could be appropriate. But now the aspect of resigning of the Minister of Gender, because the requisition of that money was to fund Nssf activities, and the intentions were to create awareness campaigns that people, because Nssf has targets, but in the coming years, because according to the numbers, there are quite few people that are serving with it. And it was meant to bring the awareness campaign to the people out there so that they can actually increase the targets of the fund. I mean, for people to serve with the fund. In all this drama, I don't see where she really comes in regarding that.
No, she does come in. She's the minister who went in and requested for this particular amount of money.
But it was meant to run Nssf activity. It wasn't for selfish gains or something.
And besides that, according to the report findings, it was not in the right order for her. And she apparently praised this particular report, according to media details.
Okay, why I say that is because she's not the first person. Is her ministry the first to get money from Nssf? Because government itself has been borrowing from Nssf.
Which is not something that, according to the report, why the minister is in this particular situation. By the look of things, according to the report that was presented by the chairperson select committee, because of the findings and the chaos behind this 6 billion saga, for example, is one of the reasons as to why she has to step down, according to what the report considered. And of course, for Richard Biarugaba, he already stepped down. Then the acting director also has been requested to step down. Not requested, but has been, according to the recommendation from the select committee, is that they have to at least have him out of office as well, to join his fellow, Richard Biarugaba. But also, Betty Amongi did agree with the report. However, she reveals that she is not going anywhere from office. And in the Insight today, we have we look at what the provisions of this report that was made by the committee, the select committee in Parliament, in regards to the Nssf saga, led by Honorable Mpaka Mwine, giving us more details about it. Let's get it.
3. The committee recommends that Parliament should streamline the dual supervision of the fund. It's global practice to see pension funds as financial institutions and consequently investment vehicles and not labor institutions, as was envisaged during the amendments of the Nssf Act. We strongly recommend that Nssf Act before amendment, that the Nssf Act be amended, to give full supervision of the fund with the Minister of Finance. We further recommend that the appointment of the managing director and deputy managing director should be vested in the minister responsible for finance. However, the minister responsible for labor will remain the sole responsibility for appointing the board members for checks and balances. 4. The committee notes that the write-off of 2.3 billion invested in West Nile Golf Club is unreasonable since the board has not taken all reasonable steps to recover it and is therefore in breach of a fiduciary duty imposed on the board by Section 4.3 of the Nssf Act. The committee therefore recommends that the board should take necessary steps to protect savers' interests in the West Nile Golf Course projects Arua with immediate effect. The committee finds no justification for the continued holding of the land title over which Workers' House is established by Tumusime, Kabega and company advocates, and therefore recommends that Nssf takes legal action to recover the land title from Alcon and Tumusime, Kabega and company advocates with immediate effect. The committee recommends that for immediate investigations by the IGG with the possibility of prosecution, the following officers involved in conceptualization and executing the casual transaction that led to the loss of 2.3 billion invested in the West Nile Golf Club, including Mr. Leonard Mpuma, the then MD, Mr. Onegi Obel, the then chairman of the board of directors, board members namely Mr. Eguya Asemo Fiona Lucy, Mr. George Baitera Maiteki, Mr. David Nkojo, Mr. Alfonso Oja Andira, Mr. Lielmoy Otong Ongaba. Other members of the board include Alozias Semanda M, Rosemary N. Senabulia, Mr. Francis Tumihirwe, Mr. Martin Bandevire, Board Secretary Honzo Bakoru, the then minister responsible for supervision of the fund, for the possibility of offences of loss of public property, abuse of office, and causing financial loss contrary to Section 10, 11, and 20 of the Anti-Corruption Act 2009, respectively. The actions of the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Amongi Ongom, in directing 6 billion to be availed to her ministry amounts to the abuse of office, since the minister, being the supervisor of Nssf without any law empowering her to do so, and knowing that the ministry activities are financed through appropriation, did an act which is prejudicial to the savers' funds and the just administration of the Nssf. The actions of the minister are arbitrary and an abuse of office of the duty under the Nssf Act, thereby bringing her conduct within the ambit of the prohibition under Section 11 of the Anti-Corruption Act on abuse of office. The committee therefore recommends that the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Amongi Ongom, resigns in public interest with immediate effect. We further recommend that the President should take keen interest in the Minister's conduct above. Whereas the committee appreciates number 8, whereas the committee appreciates Mr. Richard Byarugaba and the entire management of Nssf for their effort in growing the fund from 1.7 trillion in 2010 to 17.3 trillion as at end of fourth quarter 2022, the committee notes their involvement in the initiation of the 1.8 billion concealed under corporate social responsibility stock investment, 250 million for the board chairman, 250 million for the minister responsible for labor, 500 million for the board members, 800 million for the unions, where they justified before the committee that they did it because of pressure from the board members to make donations as an investment for stakeholders. The committee notes that their justification of succumbing to pressure to commit an illegality is no defense in criminal liability. The committee therefore recommends that the Nssf management that participated in the initiation of this 1.8 billion budget for donations, much as they did not participate in the final approval, Mr. Richard Byarugaba, the Deputy Managing Director, Mr. Patrick Ayota, the CFO, Mr. Stevens Mwanje, Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs, Ms. Barbara Aremi Teddy, should step aside with immediate effect for investigations by the Office of the IGG for the offences of abuse of office, corruption, conspiracy to commit a felony with a view of immediate prosecution. The committee notes that the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. H. Stevens Mwanje failed in his responsibility of ensuring that he obtains accountability for the monies dispersed to COF2 and NOTU amounting to 806,525,000 between January 2018 and December 2022. The committee further notes that Mr. Mwanje was employed in October 2017 in the position of CFO without being a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, contrary to Section 34(2) of the Accountants Act 2013, which provides that all heads of accounts, finance, and internal audit in public and private sector entities with public interest shall be members of the Institute in accordance with the regulations made under this Act. The committee therefore notes that the employment of Mr. Stevens Mwanje as CFO at Nssf in 2017 without being a member of the Institute of the Certified Public Accountants to date was irregular, illegal, ab initio, contravening the Accountants Act 2013. The committee recommends that the board forthwith terminates his employment with Nssf. Of practicing without a certificate, Section 35(1) states that a person shall not practice accounts in Uganda without a certificate of practice issued under Section 28 or Section 29 of the Accountants Act. Similarly, Section 35(2) states a person who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense and is on conviction liable to a fine not exceeding 500 currency points or imprisonment not exceeding 2 years and 10 months or both. The committee recommends that the Office of the DPP prosecutes Mr. Stevens H. Mwanje for the offense of practicing without a certificate. The committee notes that the two COF2 representatives on Nssf board, Honorable Dr. Sam Nyomoki and Ms. Penina Tukamwesigwa, were illegally nominated for appointment by the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to the Nssf board. The committee recommends that the minister responsible for labor should write to COF2 to recall and legitimately nominate 2 members for appointment in accordance to their constitution. The committee notes that the actions of Geoffrey Waisa Sajabi, head of business department, for accepting the deployment of
honorable members, let's listen. Ekanya, you've just come and you're making noise.
The committee notes that the actions of Mr. Geoffrey Waisa Sajabi, head of business department, for accepting the deployment of his relatives in the same department he heads were in contravention of Section 322 of the Nssf Human Resource Policy Manual and also contravene Section 13 of the Anti-Corruption Act, which creates for the offense of nepotism, which occurs where a person being a holder of an office does any act in connection with the office for that purpose of doing favors to any person on the basis of the blood relations between that person and another person. The committee further observes that Mr. Sajabi was appointed head of business at Nssf when he did not have the required qualification of a master's degree, therefore rendering his appointment was illegal and ab initio. The committee recommends that the Nssf board terminates the employment of Mr. Geoffrey Sajabi with immediate effect. The committee further recommends the IGG investigates all departments at Nssf to establish if there are similar incidents of nepotism.
So Sam Hanifa has been before these committees and followed the proceedings from day one of presenting it. Everyone who came out, everyone who came before the committee to present, to share their side of the story. And I'm not saying it is now the end of the report, but however, it was presented before plenary, and I pretty much guess it was due to the particular recommendations as to why we are at this particular time of our discussion. The Nssf report, the recommendations from this committee, like I did mention, one of which includes the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development stepping down from her duties, and then also the acting managing director following suit of the former Richard Byarugaba to as well step down from their roles. By the look of things here, how do we reach here? If you can just take us back, Hanifa, from just tracing back a little bit to understand for the viewers, again, because Ugandans normally get done with issues immediately.
Yeah.
Once something new comes up, they forget that there was something, they have to follow up more, and we end up forgetting that there's something very important. Now, the Nssf issue now reaches this stage whereby the committee has already presented a report. Unlike the issue to do with the Uganda Airlines, where we haven't seen the COSASE coming up with their provisions. But this one, at least, the recommendations are out, and they've been presented.
It is not surprising to everyone, to us.
Okay.
We all expected this to come at one point from the investigations. I think Parliament had an interest in this case in Nssf, being that it is savers' money at risk. Everyone was really concerned at the corruption and how things were moving and all the investigations. We also from the committee stage. What they were exposing really big people. These people are misappropriated money.
Okay.
So it is not surprising that it has come to this stage, and now that the minister, the committee has we all saw it coming, that the committee might, which it did yesterday, recommend that the minister resign for public interest. Yeah.
Well, Andrew says he's actually on the side of the minister, saying it is not right for her to resign. It's just like throwing a wrong bullet or shooting a wrong bullet to the wrong person, because it says the money that is leading to this particular decision was for Nssf duties, and so it was rightful. What is your take on that before I bring in Andrew to defend his particular opinion?
The 6 billion shillings is the one actually that opened this whole case. Things have been happening in the fund, and they were not coming out in the space for us to know that there's actually corruption in this fund, and people are using savers' money they are misappropriating savers' money and diverting it for for themselves. So when the Minister of Gender and Labour requested for this money, the 6 billion actually, so it just opened up the whole box. So I don't know. I'm not saying the minister is at fault. I don't know. That is what the committee recommended from their findings. So whoever is implicated by the committee, I think the committee is right. They have done their part. They have done their investigations. And it's not like the investigations have been behind closed doors.
Yes, they've been open. Media part of every
exactly. We've been part of these investigations.
So there wasn't any time they told you please leave.
Exactly. We understand the minister tried to expose other people, but then it all came down to her, meaning that everyone who is in Nssf wanted to eat money. I don't know. I
don't know. By the look of things, Sam Nanifa does say, if you look at, it takes me back to what I was telling you, that we may not have to coincide with anyone here who appeared before the committee, because the committee asked questions and they answered.
Exactly.
So by the look of things, every recommendation is hardly thought. They actually thought wise of whatever they came up with, thinking that maybe that would be the better way. You know, when you want to deal with, normally sometimes they say it is only one rotten tomato that makes the rest rotten. So if you find one rotten one, you have to remove it very fast before the rest eat up the rest.
Exactly. So
Andrew, I'll leave this with you and Nanifa for the moment. I need to know. You're saying the minister, Barija says the minister should not be put into, her resigning is more like a harsh decision.
Some extent, you know.
How would you defend that one, Andrew?
Well, this is what I want to say. The 6 billion awareness, I remember it was a partnership between the UBRA, the regulator, and Nssf was among that. Now the ministry also being inclusive into that. Now, if Nssf, says they were into considering what the activity of creating an awareness campaign, which I don't know whether it is really appropriate, whether if they got that 6 billion, they were really going to use it for the awareness campaign. Now the ministry trying to foresee all this because it has the interests of the people, the minister decides to, give me that money. And we need to, because it was a partnership between the three, the regulator, UBRA. So why aren't we seeing UBRA into this? And was UBRA not wise enough to advise her that, what you're doing is not right? So it shows you that it was just an understanding. I mean, talking about that it's not in the law, who really obeys the law in this country, first of all, regarding that? Because there are quite so many people that may not even take penalties for this, I mean, they may show us that, this is what is happening, but at the back doors, they are controlling this whole thing. So this whole aspect of saying that you're firing the minister, no, it's not right. She foresaw the corruption in Nssf, and she was right to take action. She was aggressive in this regard. That's why there was also UBRA into this particular, to side with UBRA at the same time.
Actually, I'll disagree with you, my friend. This whole 6 billion shillings. UBRA was not part of it, actually. Even in the meeting they had, the Minister of Finance was present. The board was there, the acting manager and the manager and the former manager. They were all present when they were discussing this the 6 billion shillings. And then the manager and the former manager, Miss Richard Biarugaba, disagreed. Because this money, when they were appropriating these 6 billion shillings, saying it was going to carry out the activities of creating awareness, the manager, the Richard Biarugaba, told the minister that these activities have already been appropriated in the budget of Nssf. So. Even the finance minister disagreed with his colleague over these 6 billion shillings. Like, this is not right. You cannot start removing 6 billion from the funds. This is savers' money. When we are appropriating money for the fund or to run the activities of the fund, it is the money that Parliament appropriates. You cannot get money from the fund. It was not right. So if your fellow colleague comes up and advises you, he's a senior colleague, tells you that this money is not, you cannot remove money from the fund. If you want money that to run activities of the ministry, of the fund, that money has to be appropriated by Parliament. Remember, Parliament is the one that appropriates money to each sector, and then the money is dispersed by finance, Ministry of Finance. But then getting money from the fund itself to run activities of Ministry of Gender, as disguising as activities of the fund. That was that is where she abused the power.
But the interests were still coming. The fund was still going to benefit at the end of the day. You see, Hanifa, this whole scenario is okay.
How sure are you?
Okay, I'm so sure about that. You see this. Why is the resignation of Betty Amongi coming up right now? Why wasn't the case before? Why is it just? It shows you that at the time it's been silent. Something has not been right somewhere. I mean, why? That's why she's actually, if you are like reviewing that report, she was seated and she's smiling all the way. And now she gets surprised to see that, hey, how's this? Meaning, that was a shock to her side. Probably if she expected that, she wouldn't be reacting that way at the beginning of that. Meaning, something is not right somewhere. If you saw what we call facial expression, and we need photographic interpretation in geography. You saw that? You saw that? I mean, it shows you something wasn't right somewhere. Why is it coming up now?
Actually, all the ministers who are facing the cut, who are on the verge of being cut, are like that. We saw the case in Honorable Minister Namuganza. When they were all deciding her fate, she was smiling. She was like, I'm not going anywhere. Even this one, the same thing. She says, I'm not going anywhere. So I feel sorry for the president. I feel terrible. Like, the man is at the center of fighting corruption, and his ministers, the ministers he appointed, are the ones letting him down. So he has not talked about it. I am really waiting for the president to come up and say something about his ministers, because his ministers are getting exposed. They are exposing the president.
Anyway, And of course, there is a panel discussion here in the show regarding the Nssf and the Select Committee recommendations. So Nssf continues to remind the people out there, Ugandans, that, well, your savings are safe with them, regardless of what is happening here and what is being reported, so you can continue to save. But, well, for us here, we continue to remind you that you can save for investment by using the Zabu platform. Save with Zabu, *292# is the USSD code that you can use to invest today. Invest in securities and be part of Uganda's growing financial market space. For example, if you want to invest in government bonds, you need just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings. That is just a simple amount for you to kickstart off your investment. The markets open at 8:15 a.m. and their closing time is 3:15 p.m. They're only fully closed during the weekends and on public holidays. Do remember, if you want to register with the platform, all you need is your national identification number. After registration, you will be able to invest in the next 24 hours. Zabu, my money, my future, Alltex East Africa, do something new. Well, that's it for what has been the talk of town in the recent few days. But of course, we shall be giving you more updates as it prevails in Parliament. Resolutions, what's happening, what key discussions are there. Of course, Sama Hanifa brings us all that and more. And even tonight, more stories coming in from the August House. Meanwhile, stick around to Smart Means Business. After the break, we shall be getting on with our on-ground conversations. Good morning.